Hey, if we haven't met yet, my name is Linda Blaylock, and I am the creator of the How to Eat for CKD Method program. I am also a chef, a nutritionist, and I am a kidney health coach and a caregiver to my husband who has stage 3 kidney disease. I was also contracted with American Kidney Fund for about 4 years, where I tested and created recipes and did a lot of educational and informational content with cooking demonstrations and for their blog. And you can find a lot of my recipes on their Kidney Kitchen website. Now, I'm not getting paid by them, don't worry. It's just that I have a really great relationship and I really adore that company. And so I'm going to support them and mention them whenever I can. And also, the sale of my books, a certain number of proceeds will go back to them to help support the kidney community. Okay, so today I wanted to come to you and give you guys a little bit of help with some stuff. And today I'm going to be talking about those nutrients that are often restricted with kidney disease. So you know how it goes. You might have to be restricting your potassium, your phosphorus, your sodium. Some of you will be restricting protein, fluids, and if you also have diabetes, you may be restricting your carbs too. So there's a lot that is at play there. So I'm here today to help you understand the importance and the effects of those nutrients that we have to limit and what foods contain them. So even though I have, a whole lot of it up here, I tend to get really excited when I talk about kidney disease and helping people with it. And so I can tend to forget things. So I'm going to be following a little bit of my notes. Bear with me. So let's just dive in because I know you're busy. So first up, we're going to talk about phosphorus. That seems to be the big one, aside from obviously sodium. It's the big one that people really have to monitor usually and probably struggle with the most because we weren't really taught or informed of where phosphorus is. We saw it on that fancy little table in science class somewhere, but beyond that, we didn't think about it when it came to foods, right? And it's in there. So, okay, first things first, phosphorus helps with growth, repairing cells and tissues, and building your DNA, RNA, and that kind of stuff. We're not going to get all sciencey, I'll just tell you that much. So too much phosphorus is called hyperphosphatemia. And this will end up removing calcium from your bones, which ends up causing them to become brittle. That's not good, right? In addition, it's also a major cause of cardiovascular calcification. It causes illness and obviously death. So too little, let's flip it over, is hypophosphatemia. And this can happen if you're not eating enough, which it really can happen, especially when you're just starting out, trying to figure out this diet. You're not sure where all that phosphorus is, and so you're really limiting things. And then you can end up not eating enough. We did that in the beginning and had to bump that phosphorus back up right away. So it can also be due to any supplements you might be taking or medications. Those may end up affecting your phosphorus levels. And even other health conditions can have an effect. So when things get really, really severe, when it gets really bad, it is life-threatening. So where do you find it? Well, medications can contain it. Additives are big, especially in America. Phosphorus is a very popular additive, a very popular preservative. And it's in meat, it's in beans, it's in nuts, grains, dairy. There's even some in produce and beverages. You guys that love your cola products, right? You were probably told stop. You were probably told to not drink any dark colored beverages. And that's because there's a lot of phosphorus in those. And that's going to be very harmful. So now you know. Okay, let's move on because we don't need this video to be seriously crazy long. Potassium helps with your fluid levels. It helps with muscle contraction and with your blood pressure. Your heart is a muscle, right? So your potassium levels are going to affect the contractions of your heart. So too much is hyperkalemia. And that's when the potassium levels are too high, obviously your kidneys are going to struggle to remove that extra potassium. So then it's going to start building up. And that can lead to, obviously, like I said, problems with the heart beating, but it can lead to heart attacks and it can lead to death. So we want to get that down. Excuse me. So flip it into little is hypokalemia. And that happens when obviously you're not eating enough. Especially like, you know, for those of you who have poor appetites, who maybe have stomach issues, chronic diarrhea is another one. And medications can affect your potassium levels as well. And again, even though this is the flip side, it can lead to heart attacks and to death. So where can you find it? Medications, of course, additives. I think potassium is the number one like additive and preservative. Man, they've got it in everything. Everything. So that is a struggle right there. And also it is in nearly every frickin' food on the planet. So I know it doesn't make it much easier, right? Great, thanks. Okay, so let's move on to sodium. Sodium is important. You don't want to go too low with this, okay? We know you have to restrict it. However, this sodium, it does help with your nerve impulses. It also does help work with the potassium for the contraction and relaxation of those muscles. It helps with your fluid levels and your mineral balances, right? So it's over in here trying to monitor all these other things you're trying to deal with. So you need to find that right level. So let's see, too much is hypernatremia. And obviously it's from eating too much salt, which is easy to do. If you have fluid loss from, say, excessive urination, maybe from vomiting or diarrhea, sweating, and especially like during hot weather and when you're exercising. And if you're simply not drinking enough fluids, this can result in the fluids being out of balance in your body. And so the sodium concentration that is in your blood is actually higher than the fluid content. And that's not a good thing. This, when it happens, can lead to seizures, fainting, and loss of consciousness and death. Serious stuff, right? So, you know, let's make sure we're keeping it where it needs to be. All right, flipping it, we're going too little, hyponatremia. Okay, now this is if you're not eating enough salt or sodium, and this is extremely common. Oh my gosh, a lot of clients, when they're starting out with this, they're not eating enough salt. They're just avoiding it entirely, and that is not okay. That is not the way the game needs to be played with this. Okay, you do need to have your sodium. So not having enough is going to cause poor appetite. It can cause illness. It can be the result of medications that you're taking, especially if they're diuretics. Again, vomiting and sweating and diarrhea. Those who have liver disease, this can be an issue. Drug use, over-the-counter consumption of fluids. I'm sorry, not over-the-counter, overconsumption of fluids can cause low sodium. So then where we said how the salt got too concentrated, then if you're drinking too much, now it's out of balance. So you have more fluid than you do sodium. That's not okay either, right? So this can lead to fainting again, seizures, hallucinations, coma, and death. So I hope you can understand now why, even though you might have to restrict your sodium, you do have to make sure you're falling within the numbers that your doctor or your dietitian has given you, to make sure that you are still keeping good levels. You're not going to have all these different effects that can happen. Okay. We're going to jump into protein. Ready? Protein's pretty easy. I think we all learned early on where protein hides, right? What foods have them. So protein repairs and makes new cells. It provides energy, helps with growth, bones, muscles, skin, hair, nails, oxygen transport, and organ function. So too much, okay? Hyperproteinemia happens when you eat too much protein, obviously. Dehydration, chronic inflammation. Did you know that? Right? I know there's a lot of you out there going, hold up, wait, because I deal with that. I'm there with you because I have a condition that can flare with the inflammation can flare very easily and get out of control. So there's that chronic thing there, right? Okay. Anybody with hepatitis B or C, people with cancer, liver disease, HIV or AIDS, all of these can cause high protein. Like I said, I'm not going to get into the sciencey stuff because that's going to just know that those are the things that can cause it. So what happens is this can lead to a buildup of ammonia within your body. It can build up the urea and amino acids in the blood. And again, we're getting into sciencey stuff. I'll just give you the words. You can look them up if you want to. So although it is rare, protein poisoning is a thing, and it can be fatal. Who knew, right? Okay, let's go the other side of this. Hypoproteinemia, too little. So if you're not eating enough. People with celiac or Crohn's disease, people who have parasites, it happens. Infections, simple infections, pancreas or liver damage, intestinal issues. So anybody who has any kind of, maybe you've had surgery, or maybe you just have like IBS, intestinal issues, people who've had weight loss surgery. This can lead to low protein intake or even just low absorption. So what happens is you end up with muscle loss. You can end up with slow or stunted growth. This is especially true like for children. Weakened immune systems. Now you're always getting sick. Oh, joy. Let's add that on top of it, right? Ugh. Okay. You can end up with heart and lung issues, and obviously it can be life-threatening. Who knew not eating enough protein can actually be life-threatening, right? So where do we find it? Surprisingly, there are additives. It can be in beverages. Meat. I'll back up. Beverages, we're talking about like those protein shakes and those kinds of things. Okay, we're not talking about what do you mean there's protein in 7-Up? No, we're talking about like protein shakes and stuff like that. The additives are like the protein powders and stuff. Okay, obviously meats, dairy, nuts, beans, grains, and some vegetables too. All right. So let's jump on in to fluids. So obviously, fluids are going to help to regulate our body temperature. They help to lubricate our joints, deliver nutrients to our cells, organ functioning. The fluids help prevent infection and helps with cognition, mood, and sleep. I had to think about that for a while, but it's true. If you're really thirsty, it's kind of like, how you get hangry. I don't know we got to come up with that word for that when you're really, really thirsty and it makes you cranky and, that kind of thing. It's true. It happens. Okay. So when you get too much fluid, there's not really a technical term. We're just calling it overhydration. What happens is it dilutes your body's sodium and electrolytes, right? We're back to that again, where you have too much fluid in your body and not enough like sodium and electrolytes, so that's out of balance again. Okay. Let's see. What happens also, and I don't know if you find this interesting. I do. When you drink too many fluids, when you're over consuming, it can cause your cells to swell. Makes sense, right? But this leads to inflammation, right? Wow, that's kind of interesting. I had never put those two together, but there you go. Okay, so diuretics, if you're taking those, and other drugs can actually cause thirst. Kind of crazy that I'm taking a diuretic so I can get rid of some fluid, but boy, it makes me thirsty. I'm sorry, it doesn't even make sense, right? So, let's see. Congestive heart failure, liver disease, and diabetes can actually cause you to retain water. Your body will hold on to it. And I think we're all aware that water poisoning is a real thing. You can drink too much and it can be fatal. I think, unfortunately, we've seen some of those videos out there of those teenagers that weren't so smart, right? That's sad. Okay, so underhydration, too little. Ready? Obviously, it results from not drinking enough. Medications like diuretics, here we go again with those things, illness, exercise, sweating, we kind of covered these before, vomiting, diarrhea, fever, increased urination, even crying, or living in a hot environment. These can all result in low fluids. And so what happens is that the blood vessels in your brain will start shrinking, and your heart needs to work harder to get everything moving through. And then the swelling of the cells and the organs can swell too, as they try to hold on to the little bit of fluid that is available, because they need water to live too. That's leading to that inflammation. But think of what it's doing to your cells and to your bodies, to your organs, I'm sorry. What it's doing inside your body there. It's screaming for more fluid. So we want to make sure we are keeping that balance. Most people can only survive about 3 days without water, right? So make sure you are getting the amount you need. I know some of you are going to need to be restricting it, and that can be difficult. But do some research, talk to your doctor, dietitian, what you can do with working through that. Okay, so we're going to move on quickly so I can touch on some other last things I wanted to mention. Just some other information like the fat soluble vitamins. Let's see. I know, see, I get too excited and I blank out. A, C, D, E, and K. Okay. Those are fat soluble, and it's not recommended that people with kidney disease be taking those kinds of supplements unless your doctor is telling you you need them, simply because they will build up in the body and the kidneys are going to struggle to filter those out. So don't be jumping on any of those over-the-counter things, unless your doctor has said it's okay for you. Herbal pills and supplements. A lot of people have been falling for this crap, and it's breaking my heart, I'm telling you. There are herbal pills and supplements out there that can raise your potassium, and there's herbs out there that can harm the kidneys. So you really, really want to stay away from these kinds of things. We're talking about herbal teas. Double check to make sure that the herb base of the tea and its other ingredients, excuse me, that are in there are not harmful to the kidneys. Make sure of that first, but otherwise herbal tea is fine. Okay. Empty promises is a huge one. And again, this is going to work in with the supplements and all that crap that's out there. There is no cure for kidney disease. I don't want you to believe something you've read that, oh, I healed this and I did that and I, my EGFR went up and I just, that. No, okay. There's no cure. You will never, ever heal them. Ever. Period. Get that locked in. You may improve your lab numbers. Yes. You may improve your GFR number. It can happen. Sure. But it doesn't mean that your kidneys are getting better. Okay? Understand that they're not healing. All right. So, like I said, please do yourself a favor and don't ever buy into or believe anyone making any kind of promise like that they're going to heal or improve things. It's only going to do harm. Okay, so I wanted to mention a few things when we're covering with these nutrients. We're obviously dealing with, eating with foods and meals. And so I want to make sure that you guys understand that, excuse me, looking for those recipes online, that's completely fine. I mean, that's where we started too, right? But you need to understand that those recipes aren't necessarily going to fit your needs. Somebody who is stage 2 is not going to eat the same thing as somebody who is stage 4, vice versa, right? So you can't both use this recipe. The majority of recipes out there are actually set for stage 3 because it's the biggest group. If you're stage 2, you could use it, but you're risking consuming too little of those nutrients. If you're stage 4, you're risking it because now you're over consuming the nutrients. Okay? Do you see where people get caught up in the, oh, just give me recipes? That can be a trap, and I really, really don't want you to fall into that. Okay? So, and it's kind of the same thing, with those that are diabetic, because it's a very large group that have diabetes and kidney disease. You're not going to use this stage 3 pasta recipe if you're, a stage 4 diabetic. I mean, it just isn't going to work. So please be mindful and be careful with those online recipes. Just because it says kidney friendly, it doesn't mean it fits your specific needs. Okay. Now, I also want to just touch on the fact that every person will process nutrients differently. And it's just kind of always assumed that, everybody's like me or everybody's the same, or, it's your own experience. You just kind of assume everybody deals with that, but it's not true. Okay. People process them differently. So there's someone who can, go ahead and eat potassium, and their body's going to, for some reason, deal with that really well. It's fine. Their lab numbers will be okay. And then you've got somebody who's going to look at a banana, go in for their labs, and they're going to be like, what are you doing? Your potassium's too high. I don't know. I looked at a banana. That was it. So, I mean, it happens. So keep that in mind and keep an eye on your labs. If you're looking at your labs and you're thinking, well, I've been doing everything right, why is, my potassium too high still? your body just may not process it as well as somebody else's, and you're going to work extra hard at keeping that potassium in check. Okay, this can happen with any of the nutrients, right? Okay, so I hope you can see the importance of all of these nutrients, and you have a little bit better understanding of why they're so important, what they do, and why it's important to find your balance and make sure you're sticking with it, because too much and too little is just not a good thing, right? Okay. So most importantly, your kidney diet is all about the uniqueness of you. Now, if you're struggling, I'm going to let you know right now that the books for my program are available on Amazon. Look for the How to Eat for CKD Method by Linda Blaylock. There's both print and ebook. You can also check out my website, howtoeatforckd.com, and there's links on there too. And I also have made available my program online. So if you're somebody who would rather be online than working with books, that's fine. And if you're somebody, and I know there's a lot of you, because of my support group and their feedback, I know a lot of people are struggling. And so what I've done is I've broken my program into sections, and I've combined a few that kind of made sense together. But if you need to buy the sections one by one, you absolutely can. So you can head on over to my website and you can check out that information and see what's there. Whatever you need help with, let's make sure that you get that help. All right. So I will be coming up with another video shortly, and you can check the other videos out as you wish. So for the love of kidneys, I'll see you later.